Welcome to Pass It On, Connecting Soul to Soul, a podcast introducing you to courageous souls. These people are taking their spark in life and passing it on, lighting their corner of the world. I'm your host, Tammy Sturr, best-selling author, speaker, and CEO of Author My Day, a company inspiring courage. I interview people about how they exercise their courage muscle and use their story to inspire you to live with a courageous heart. Let's get started with today's guest. Welcome to Pass It On, Connecting Soul to Soul. Our guest today is Martha McNiel. Martha McNiel is a licensed marriage and family therapist in Gilroy, California. For the past 22 years, she has directed the Dream Power Horsemanship, a nonprofit organization that offers equine-assisted psychotherapy. Martha is a PATH International Certified Therapeutic Riding Instructor, Therapeutic Driving Instructor, and equine specialist in mental health and learning. Her first big book, Poppy and Daisy's Big Adventure, came out in her Dream Power Tales, a new series of children's books telling the true stories of animal friends Martha has known at Dream Power and beyond. Her goal is to introduce children to amazing animals who help people in truly remarkable ways. Martha, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Martha, I find this fascinating because your Facebook profile says you're from Iowa, but you're in California. So how does an Iowa girl end up in California?
So this Iowa girl started off in Saudi Arabia. I was born in Oklahoma, but moved to Saudi Arabia at the age of 6 months. And my father was a pediatrician who worked for the Arabian American Oil Company. So I spent almost 10 years growing up in Saudi Arabia. And then we moved from Saudi Arabia to Iowa in January, in the middle of one of the heaviest winters in history. And so we had to shovel the path to the front door to get in the house. And then I graduated from high school in Iowa and went to Texas for college. So I went to Baylor University and I went to college in Texas. And then I took a 2-year internship with the Southern Baptist Home Mission Board in San Francisco, working with Central American refugees in a shelter for Central American refugees. And I was supposed to be there for 2 years and I never left. So I'm still there. That was in 1982. And I'm still there 40 something years later. I'm still in California.
I see. Interesting. So what spark do you want to be in the world? You have all this life experience. What spark do you want to be?
So my goal, I don't know if this is a spark, but my goal is that everything that I do and everything that I say would bring glory to God. That is my goal. And so my spark is that I just hope that I can be a little bit of light, of God's light and God's love wherever I go. And I fail at that daily. I know that I fail at that daily. But my hope is that I will bring light and love in whatever way that happens, wherever I go. That's the overarching goal.
Which, if people go and follow you online, I'm going to tell you that's exactly what they see. There is so much light and goodness in everything that you're posting and the work that you're doing with people as well as animals that I'm just telling you, if you need confirmation, you're fulfilling your purpose. You're fulfilling your spark.
I appreciate that because I daily know that I fail and don't do that. But that's my goal. That is what I am striving for on a daily basis.
So you have such a dedication to animals as well as people, as we heard in the beginning. So I want to know, does your spark come more from inspiring and working with people or inspiring and working with the animals?
So I feel like my number one calling is to work with people, but the animals renew me. So the animals bring me joy. And so working with animals fills up my cup and gives me more to work with people. I do believe that animals deserve care and that part of my purpose is also to care for animals, but that's secondary to the people. People are always number one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my rule in everything, is that people are always first. And then the animals are second. But the truth is, the reason I work with animals is because it brings me joy and I love it and it's fun. And so I have learned over the years, I need that time. I need to have time with animals for myself and for my own soul to fill up my cup. And then I can go and give to other people.
Absolutely. From your abundance because you filled your cup. And so many people don't understand that you need to fill your cup in order to fill others.
I schedule in time with my animals. I write it down on my calendar because if I don't, I'll fritter it away doing something else. So I
Right.
schedule appointments with the animals um, and try to make that because I need it and they also need it.
How awesome. And what a great role model you are for the people that you're working with in therapy to show how animals can be a part of what you're working on to bring joy into your life.
Yes.
As you work as a therapist, is there a certain type of clientele that you tend to work with? Like, do you tend to work with like depression or um why can't I think of any autistic children? Like what's your like base clientele for therapy?
So now at this point in my career, I work almost exclusively with military veterans and law enforcement officers. Um, and so trauma.
Mhm,
When I started off, I worked a lot with children in foster care. So
mhm.
I spent many, many years working with kids in foster care. And that's actually why part of the motivation for starting Dream Power was to help kids in foster care. So I worked with kids for a long time and just kind of over time, things have changed. And so now I work almost exclusively with military veterans and law enforcement officers.
Interesting. Huh. So tell us about a project that you're either working on now, either personally or professionally.
Well, professionally, I am still the director of Dream Power Horsemanship. So I've been there now since August of 2002. Um, so that's an ongoing project. Someday it will come to an end. I don't know when, but not now. Um, I am in the process of writing my second book for the Dream Power Tales. This one is the story of Sir Harold Rucker, who was a rescued German Shepherd, who actually showed up at our ranch. And I literally think God placed him there. Um, because I saw him, I was coming into the ranch one night, and at a time I don't normally come, and just to come check on the horses. And I looked to the left, and there was a German Shepherd in our horse pasture, a big, like 100-pound black German Shepherd. And I'm like, that doesn't look right. So I stopped my car and I went over and tried to call him, and he wouldn't come. And he ran across the creek and he turned around and looked at me, and he had the saddest eyes I've ever seen in an animal. And I just locked eyes with him and I saw those sad eyes. Now I know it was his eyebrows. He had these amazing eyebrows, but in the twilight, they just looked so sad. And I tried to call him, he wouldn't come. He ran away. And so then we tried to trap him. We got a trap from animal control and we set this big trap trying to catch him with food. And we caught the same pregnant raccoon 3 nights in a row. In the morning, there's a pregnant raccoon in the trap and no sign of a German Shepherd. So anyway, for 2 weeks, I chased him around the ranches in our area, talking to people. Oh yeah, he was here. Yeah, he was here. I saw him. He was eating cat food on the porch. He's really scared. He's running all the time. That's the dog. And so I knew he would either get trapped or get hit by a car, one or the other. We're going to catch him at some point in time. You can't disappear. And so I was going to the animal shelter fairly regularly to see if he'd come in. And one Sunday I went in and there he was. I go, that's the dog. I recognize the collar. That's the dog. And so I said, I want him. And he apparently had just come in like an hour before. I said, I put my name down. I want to adopt him. And they said, well, he's so scared. He might not be adoptable. He might not be safe. I go, I don't care. Put my name down. We'll figure it out. And so I went to a pet food store, bought a box of dog cookies, brought him back to the shelter, and the staff just sat in the back with him and fed him cookies like for a day. The next day, when I came back, he was sitting at the front of the kennel, shaking hands with every person who walked by. And there were 24 names on the list of people that wanted him. And I'm like, no, 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 no. He's mine. He's mine. He's mine. And so in the end, I adopted him. I did get him. I wasn't on the list. I got him. And he worked for about 10 years at Dream Power as a therapy dog. He went to school, he got trained, he got certified, and he worked for about 10 years there. So this book is his story.
How awesome. I'm so excited for this book to come out. I'm a dog lover and I just think the story is amazing. And when the right dog and the right owner come together, it's just such a magical relationship.
I think he was an angel that God literally just put in our pasture, so that I would see him and make a connection with him and then find him and get him. It turned out his owners were probably drug addicts who'd been evicted from their home. And when they were evicted, they dumped their dogs. And there were two of them, and the other one got eaten by coyotes.
Oh,
So Rucker was traumatized in addition to being homeless and hungry. So he actually did have PTSD. Um, and so that gave him a lot of ways to connect with people. He'd had a difficult beginning. And so he had the most empathy of any dog I've ever known. He was a really empathic dog. And if somebody was struggling, he would just come up and lean on them. And you couldn't help but pet him. Even if you were terrified of dogs, you couldn't help but pet him. And so, yeah, it's going to be his story.
I can't wait. I'm so excited for this. Looking back, what was a project that you worked on or an action that you took that you had to exercise your courage muscle?
That is the easy number one as far as I'm concerned. So my biggest risk that I've ever taken in my life, which required the most courage, was quitting my what is it? My civil service, not tenured. What's the word when you're secure in your job? Anyway, it was a civil service job with the city and county of San Francisco. I had a good income. I had security. I had everything I wanted. I had what some people refer to as golden handcuffs, where you have this salary that is so nice and you're comfortable and you're secure in your job. And I just up and quit in order to go work for Dream Power Horsemanship. So I went from a very well-paid job with, financial security to being a volunteer director of a nonprofit that didn't have any paid staff.
Wow.
And the reason I did that is because I had been working 4 days a week for the city and then 3 days a week at Dream Power. And we had finally grown to the point that I couldn't do everything at 2 a.m. Like I was doing all the work at hours when nobody else was up because I had to be at my real job the other time. So I just quit. And people told me I was crazy. You're going to regret it. People don't do this. Why are you leaving this job? And I'm like, because I want to, because this is what I want to do. And there were, changes going on in the work setting and lots of changes. And I didn't want to be a part of the new changes. And my heart was at Dream Power. And so my mental image from that day and to the present is that I literally jumped off a high cliff. And I thought either God is going to catch me or he's not, and I'm going to crash. But there's no way to know unless you do it. And so I jumped off the cliff, and that was in 2010. So it's been 15 years and I'm not starving. And, I'm not homeless. And our organization is still here and we are still helping people. And all of our needs have been met for the last 15 years and the years before that. So that was by far the scariest thing I've ever done. It's still scary. This year we're having financial problems because things have changed again. Things are always changing. You think you got it figured out, and then something changes. And so that just jumping off that cliff and attempting to lead a very small nonprofit with almost no money has been the scariest thing and the most courageous thing I've ever done in my life.
How amazing. And that nonprofit adopts ponies. And you wrote a book about these ponies, Poppy and Daisy's. I don't have it in front of me. Poppy and Daisy's Big Adventure. Okay. I should know this. Um, so tell us about this children's book that you wrote.
So, as a little girl, I read a series of books by the author Marguerite Henry, who was a Newbery and Caldecott Medal winner. She was a very well-known children's book author back in the day, or for horse kids. All the horse kids knew her books. A series of her books were, and she only wrote about horses and animals, but mostly horses. A series of her books were about Chincoteague ponies. And so as a little girl, I read all those books and I was like, oh, yeah. Someday I want to have a Chincoteague pony. And then I went to a workshop, a conference for therapeutic riding, where they evaluated about 15 different breeds of horses for their suitability for therapeutic work. And the Chincoteague pony was one of the 15 breeds that they evaluated. This was like in 2010, 2012, something like that. And and they said the only thing wrong with Chincoteague ponies is they're small, that like a large adult could not ride them. But other than that, they are temperamentally and physically, they're strong, they're healthy, they're perfectly suited for therapeutic work as long as you're not working with very large adults. And I'm like, okay, I want one. Oh, I want one. I'd wanted one as a little girl. I want one for Dream Power. And this was like 2012.
Okay.
And I had never given up on it, but it certainly wasn't front burner. And then at the end of COVID, like in 2022, a friend said, hey, I'm going to Chincoteague. You want to come? And I'm like, yeah, I want to come. I'd never been. So my friend and I went to Chincoteague Island during a hurricane. And while we were there, because there was a hurricane, things were kind of shut down a little bit. But we met with a trainer and a veterinarian who specialize in Chincoteague ponies. And I told them, I've always wanted to do this, but I don't know how to get a newborn foal from Virginia to California safely. And they said, we can tell you how to do that. And so we met with them, and these people have become dear friends, and they're actually in the book. You can see their pictures are in the book, even though you wouldn't know that if you didn't know them. But people that know them go, oh, there's Tipson, there's Allison, they're in the book. And so they advised us on what bloodlines to buy, which stallions were suitable for therapeutic work and which ones were not. We got an approved list and a not approved list. And then they kind of held our hand through an auction. I went home and I raised money from our people. I said, hey, we want to do this. I want to get a pony, but for the mental health of the pony, we want two of them because I want them to come together. I don't want one coming by itself. I want two of them to come together. So our beautiful, amazing donor base raised the money for two foals, plus shipping costs from Virginia to California. And so there's an online auction. We bought the two that we wanted with the selection of these advisors. And then we sent them to Pony Kindergarten in Pennsylvania, which it's sort of a transition, like a transitional kindergarten for wild ponies who are learning to eat like human food, getting used to domesticated stuff. They get dewormed because they come with lots of worms. They get vaccinated under veterinary supervision because they're baby foals and they're very fragile. And they're usually 3 or 4 months old when they come off the island, which is young. But it's because the island has very poor nutrition. Like it has no nutrition, basically. And so ponies that grow up off the island are average 4 inches taller than the ones that are on the island because of nutrition. So we get them off early in order to get a good nutritional start and so that their moms can recover before winter. So anyway, they go to Pony Kindergarten and then we shipped them to California to Dream Power. And so the book is the story of the ponies starting off on the island in a wild herd. It's a wild managed herd in a wildlife refuge on Assateague Island. then they go to pony kindergarten, and then they end up at Dream Power. And so it's the story of Poppy and Daisy um, in our program.
I just like, okay, so a couple things. Number one, going to the island for the auction is now on my bucket list. And coming to see you in Gilroy, California is on my bucket list. And
Right?
now I think you just put pony kindergarten in Pennsylvania on my bucket list.
The people that run it are amazing. It's a team. It's a horse trainer and a veterinarian, and they have now helped to kind of socialize and transition more than 150 wild pony foals, and that's their specialty. And so they know what they're doing, and they know how to make it safe and comfortable for the animals. And so it's a pretty amazing thing they do there.
So my grandson, who is a little cowboy, like literally has his own horse and everything, um, he got your book for Christmas, which he loved and or still loves. I'm sure we'll be reading it when I go back and see him next month. But I you expose a whole new idea of how maybe people think that horses are used, how they're trained, and then to see that story go from being a wild horse, and I'm kind of going to give away a little bit at the end of your book, they're with one of your clients, one of your therapy clients.
Mhm.
And my grandson just loves it, and it has like opened up his mind to new possibilities that horses just aren't for barrel racing, rodeo, and going out to Dr. Cattle.
Yay, that means that I've accomplished one of the goals of my book.
Right?
Because
Right?
one of my goals was for children to realize that animals can help people, and that it could be a potential new career for the animal. And it could also be a potential new career for a child, that
Right.
you can work with many kinds of animals and help people as part of your work with animals.
You are so multifaceted as you're talking about doing the trauma work with law enforcement and military to helping children to rehabbing animals with like the new book coming out. It's amazing to me just how fascinating and interesting you are and how you can bring so many different parts together to work for the common good of a human. So thank you for that work that you do.
Thank you for noticing.
So let's talk about something bigger when it comes to humans then in a project. Poppy and Daisy's Big Adventure went to what country and how did that happen?
So Poppy and Daisy's Big Adventure is now translated into 3 languages. So it is now in English, Spanish, and Ukrainian. And the way the Ukrainian connection happened was last March, so almost a year ago now. A friend of mine that I met, a psychologist who I met 20 plus years ago, before Dream Power existed, I met her and we've remained friends and professional colleagues. And she emailed me and she said, "Hey, I met this young woman from Ukraine who is trying to start a therapeutic horsemanship program working with children affected by war and military veterans in Ukraine. Would you be willing to meet with her once and just talk with her about veterans work?" And I said, "Absolutely, I would be honored to do that." And so I met with her on Zoom. And to my amazement, the Zoom connection was better than my Zoom connection to San Jose. Apparently, it's on Starlink and it's amazing. And so I ended up meeting with her every other week for the past year. And now I'm actually on the board of directors of the Victory Center in Kyiv, Ukraine, which is a challenge. Um, but in talking with her just about different things, I'm like, we were talking about books for children, and they want to have a reading. They have a little meadow, a reading meadow at their program where kids can come out, and reading is going to be a part of their program. And so I said, well, I wrote this book. And somehow we got onto the idea that we were going to translate it into Ukrainian. I don't remember how that even happened. And so Nastia, the director, her husband actually did the main translation, and then people from their program were the secondary readers who read it to make sure everything was okay. And so we ended up, a Girl Scout came to me and was volunteering at Dream Power, and I was just talking with her about her future plans and dreams, and turned out she still had her Gold Award project to go, but she'd given up on it. She said, I can't do it. My troops kind of disbanded. I don't have anything to do. And I'm like, well, what do you have to do? She said, well, it has to be a project that benefits the whole world. I go, well, that's a little grandiose. I said, well, yeah, I have an idea. And so this became this Girl Scout Gold Award project where she helped raise money to pay for the printing of it. The translation was free, but she paid for the printing costs. And then we did a little fundraiser at Dream Power, and we raised enough money to buy 200 copies of the book in Ukrainian. So in December, 3 staff members from the program in Ukraine came to Gilroy and came to visit Dream Power to talk more about programming and how to build a program for veterans. And then we had a dinner for them, a fundraising dinner for their program, and we gave them 200 copies of Poppy and Daisy's book in Ukrainian, which they took back to Ukraine. And this summer they're going to use it in their program with their children there. Just amazing.
Fantastic. Who knew? Who knew a year ago when you started this project of writing that this was going to happen?
A year ago, at this very moment in time, I was grieving the fact that my first draft sucked and that the editor had told me that it sucked and that I needed to rewrite 95% of it. And that was literally what was happening 1 year ago right now. And after my pride recovered, and I rewrote it, then we just moved forward. And yeah, that's what happened.
And now you're benefiting people worldwide, starting with my family.
It's amazing. It's like these two little, and it's just two cute little ponies who want to help people, who are going to help people, who do help people. And I just like the other reason I wanted to write these books is I really just wanted literally to bring some light and goodness into the world.
Mm-hmm.
That there's so much. I mean, I could write books about trauma. I could write books about kids, death. And I've done death groups for kids and divorce and grief and trauma, whatever. There's enough of that out there. I just wanted to bring a little happiness, cute ponies. This is a happy book. There's nothing bad happens in it.
Right.
So that was my goal, was just to bring happiness and light to some people.
And my recommendation to people, because Martha has 2 new ponies that are now at Dream Power Horsemanship. And so read the book to get the base and then go watch this new story that's happening on her social media. And I'm so excited. The other day you had put a fleece blanket, I think it was, on yep, on the new ponies that are there to get them kind of used to something touching and stuff. And I'm like, oh, and it's like I can look back in the book and there's a whole page of terms there to help you if you don't know the horse world, but you can watch this like live story happening over this next year in addition to the book. So thanks for bringing us like a whole nother set of stories.
They're just so fun and they're so sweet. I am thoroughly enjoying working with all 4 of our ponies.
Martha, how do you define courage?
Okay, so you told me you were going to ask me that question. And I went down a rabbit hole last night and I realized I could answer that question 10 different ways and they would all be true for me. That there's just so many ways to go with that. But I kind of got stuck on the political climate of our country right now, which is deeply divided and breaks my heart. And I sort of came up to the conclusion that right now for me, the most important thing is people who are courageous remain true to their convictions and true to their values, and their actions are consistent with their values, even if it's not popular with half of the country. Because no matter what you do, half of the people that you know probably won't like it. And half of the country won't like it. And that, which breaks my heart. So I think for me at this moment, this week, courage is remaining true to your values and true to your convictions, even when other people won't like it and you're going to get flack for it.
Wow. And why do you think courage matters?
Because can you hear that? My dog is chasing my cat.
How fun.
Yeah. Courage matters because I truly believe if a person is going to live their fullest, most abundant, most meaningful and effective life, they have to be true to themselves. And being true to yourself requires courage. And so a person who is always worried about what other people are thinking or saying and is afraid of that is never going to have the best life they could have. So it requires courage to step out and be your most authentic self that God created you to be, to help the people that you can help in the way that only you can. And it requires actually a tremendous amount of courage to live an authentic life. Yeah.
Wow. There's one of those things that it's like, that's exactly what I needed to hear today about what other people think. Thank you. If
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 you
nothing
spend
else, this
time,
podcast was for me.
if you spend time worrying about what other people think, all you do is get smaller and smaller and smaller. And so I think you do what's true to you and what you feel is on your heart and your calling, and you just do it. And then your life will be better, richer, fuller, and more effective.
Yes. Yes. Oh, when you think of a courageous individual, who do you think of?
I have a long, long list, but the one I settled on is I am obsessed with women who were spies during World War II. So I have read a bunch of books about these women who were spies. They did espionage, they did sabotage, they did undercover work, amazing stuff that happened in World War II that these women did. And many of them were teenage girls, like they were young. And so,
Really?
yes, they were teenagers out there doing all of this espionage and sabotage crap. And anyway, so I've read so many of those books in utter fascination and just wondering, would I have been able to do that? Like, what would I have done? Because they risked their lives on an hourly basis, trying to overcome evil. And so, yeah, I that's one of my set of heroines. They're getting more publicity now. There's books written about them now, but they weren't included in World War II stories in the beginning. But there's a big group of women who did amazing work as spies all over Europe for the benefit of the Allied troops. And so those are one of my groups of heroines that I think about, just the raw courage it took for them to just get through a day.
Right? Wow.
I would read the books at night before I go to bed, which would keep me up because it was too much drama.
Have you ever been to the Spy Museum in Washington, D.C.?
I don't think so.
I
I,
don't know if it's still there. I went back in 2012, I think. Maybe it was 2011, but it's been a while. But it was one of the most fascinating museums I've been to understand spy work. And I know it's making me want to go back and see if
I,
any of the
I didn't
ladies
know
are.
that was a thing, but I would love to. I will, if I'm ever there, I will definitely check it out because I would love to see that.
Oh, absolutely. Wow. What's next for Martha?
Well, I have two ponies I'm training. One of them is mine, one of them is belongs to a friend. I'm just kind of helping with her, but I have two ponies I'm working with. Um, and I'm going to finish Rucker's book. That should be out in September, I hope. And yeah, try to keep my nonprofit financially solvent.
Nice.
So
And if
those
people want to donate to Dream Power Horsemanship, where do they go?
they can go to our website, which is dreampowerhorsemanship.com, or they can find us on Facebook, and there's information there as well.
Awesome. Is there any other ways that listeners can connect with you?
So on Facebook and on Instagram, I have the Dream Power Tales and Dream Power Horsemanship and my name. You can find any of those. Those are the easiest ways to connect.
Okay. Awesome. So many ways. Anything else that you would like our listeners to know or to share with them?
No, just go give your dog a hug or your pony a hug or your cat a hug or whatever and have a good day.
Absolutely. Martha, thank you for being a guest on Pass It On Connecting Soul to Soul. What a joy it has been. Thank you for listening and being inspired to exercise your own courage muscle. Please leave us a rating on whatever platform you are listening. For even more, you can go to www.authormyday.com. Remember, you only have this one life, this one day, so always author your day. Thanks for listening to Pass It On, Connecting Soul to Soul.